Okay, friends, is it possible for this Lakewood church shooting over in the Houston, Texas area to get any more weird? But first, if you guys would go take a look at my friends Gideon Optics. Gideon has some really affordable optics out there, multi-purpose optics. I've actually been running one of their Mediator optics on one of my shotguns here recently, and this thing is taking the full beating of everything. But they have a long line of other ones. In fact, I think they're going to be introducing some new optics at SHOT Show this year as well. So go check out my new friends at Gideon Optics. Check them out at GideonOptics.com. Again, GideonOptics.com. Okay, there's lots of clarification that I want to make in this video based on additional data and information coming out. I think a lot of times we look at situations like this and boy, a lot of question marks pop up until more data comes out. Well, we want to know what that data is, and we want to know what's actually going on, because let's face it, in many cases this could have a direct impact on your own personal safety or that of your family. I would honestly, I think the best thing for me to say is some of the data that's come out has cleared some things up, and some has muddied the water up even more. The first thing that I want to make very clear, because I think everybody has had an issue with this over the last few days, is the very fact that this person was born a biological female. No Franks and beans. I want to make that very clear. And people will argue about this. I'm telling you, based on the latest report. Now, I have not seen the absence of Franks and beans on this person shooting at people at this church. I have not physically seen the void down there myself. However, it is being reported that this person became impregnated with the child that she got shot at the church, the 7-year-old who was shot in the head. I want to repeat that. This hopeful killer, because obviously she went there to kill people, was in fact a female, because this female carried this 7-year-old in her womb, meaning she got physically pregnant by her ex-husband and gave birth to this child. Now, unless you subscribe to that whole narrative that everybody can get impregnated, then we can probably agree that this was a woman who physically and naturally gave birth to another human being. And as anybody with half a brain knows, only females can do that. So that's out of the way now, right? Again, I haven't physically seen it. I haven't seen the medical records, but they are saying this person gave birth. And I am wise enough after all these years to know that only a woman can do that. Now, the rest of the news.
Police have identified the shooter as Genesee Moreno, who sometimes used the alias Jeffrey Escalante. She had a documented criminal history, and police say she had known mental health problems.
Her 7-year-old son was shot during a gun battle with officers, and tonight, a woman who identified herself as the boy's grandmother posted that he took a bullet to the brain. Right now, he's fighting for his life.
Officials say Moreno used an AR-15 in the attack and acted alone. They say she got into the church after confronting a security guard and opened fire inside the hall. 2 officers fatally shot her.
Now, a home connected to Moreno in Conroe was raided overnight.
The nut job Moreno, who was 36 years old, was first arrested on misdemeanor charges back in 2005. Over the next 19 years, she had semi-regular contact with law enforcement. That seems pretty regular to me. Her last arrest before the church shooting was in 2022 by Katy Police Department. Court records show officers found 2 weapons in her car during a traffic stop. She served 2 days in jail and authorities destroyed the guns. Now, this is kind of a weird charge right there, if you ask me. In the state of Texas, to my knowledge, because I live right next door to Texas and I'm there all the time, you can have guns in your vehicle. It's not like some of these Oregons or Massachusetts or Californias or New Jerseys where you have to have these things locked up. And maybe it was something to do with ammo. I don't know. I don't know what the issue was. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, but again, I'm not totally sure how that charge came to be. Because remember, this person was not a prohibited person. she could legally obtain at least one gun in December of 2023. This was 2 months ago, where this nutbag actually purchased the Anderson Manufacturing AR-15 that she used to try to murder people at this church. Now, I want to double back real quick because there's a lot of reports early on and a lot of confusion that this presumed shooter, with her 7-year-old in tow, had engaged through discussion, talking to the security guard initially who let her into the building. Well, it come to find out it was at gunpoint. Essentially aimed the gun at this person who was unarmed, a security guard unarmed. Sounds kind of stupid to me. I don't want you putting me in any kind of a security position if I'm not going to be armed, right? Because if I'm going to be the first person coming into contact, they're very lucky this person was not killed. Remember, this person was there to obtain a body count. How this law enforcement officer, how this security officer was not murdered is crazy beyond me. Very lucky this person is still alive. But again, that's who let them in. So it wasn't a discussion, because some people were asking, well, how did this person hide an AR-15 in a bag? Which there's ways. I mean, we know there's configurations where they could hide them, but they didn't. They encountered that security guard with a loaded weapon aimed at them, and that's how they got into the facility. So crazy, but that is some clarification right there. Now, this is where the story gets a little bit more weird. The ex-husband, Enrique Carranza, wrote that he and Marino met in 2015 when both worked at the Spaghetti Warehouse in downtown Houston. He noted that she became, quote, abusive soon after they married. All right, Enrique. I understand that women can be abusive to men, but Enrique, your man card is slowly slipping away, maybe quickly slipping away here. Carranza, in court records, this is the ex-husband, referred to his wife as Jeffrey. This was one of the aliases that the presumed shooter liked to use, a man's name. This is where the trans argument or discussion comes up. Quote, Jeffrey is a diagnosed schizophrenic, so daily it was a new battle or fight in her realm. Again, the her was referred to as Jeffrey. Carranza states that Marino also had lupus, but stopped taking her medication, and here we go, became pregnant. He asserts that she continued to use drugs, however, and their son was born prematurely with drugs in his system because this shooter carried this boy and gave birth to him. This was a natural birth by a biological female named Jeffrey. Now, one of the things that seems to be possibly in play here, that if this person was a true trans person, and there's no report of this, I'm just saying if this person was in fact a true trans person, it's possible they were trying to, quote, transition into the gender that she was pretending to be. And if testosterone was involved, that probably had a lot to do with the nutbagginess and the rage that ensued, causing her to go to this place and attempt to murder people. Another slight twist is that Carranza's mother was a Jewish rabbi. That probably contributed a little bit to the weird rage that took place, and also probably contributed to the Palestine either written or a sticker found on the Anderson Manufacturing AR-15. They also said that they believe Carranza's Jewish heritage contributed to the alleged anti-Semitism. Now, you'll remember, again, this is all for the purpose of clarifying, that originally news reports came out, including reports from the police department who encountered this person, that there was a Free Palestine note written on the AR-15. That was not the case. Now, I don't see what difference that makes at this point, other than accuracy, because whether you had Free Palestine or Palestine written on your rifle, it still shows support for Palestine, right? So, again, this is just for the sake of clarification. This is where it gets weird. Carranza, who is the ex-husband, was a registered sex offender. He first won custody of the couple's son in Harris County. However, he lost custody when the divorce was finalized in Montgomery County in 2022. He is currently incarcerated in Florida for failure to register as a sex offender. I'm not sure this story can get any weirder. you have a trans El Salvador woman who is a biological woman pretending to be a man who goes to a Christian church holding her 7-year-old son because she's mad at Jewish people and has a pro-Palestine message, Palestine, written on her rifle, and the ex-husband is a Jewish sex offender. I don't even know what to say. The grandmother that this nutbag lived with up in Conroe was discussing the 7-year-old boy being shot in the head and stated that the fault lies in a Child Protective Services of Montgomery County and Harris County, which refused to remove custody from a woman with known mental illness who was not treated, and with the state of Texas for not having strong red flag laws that would have prevented Marino from owning or possessing a gun. Typical nutbag leftist right there, believing that red flag gun laws are going to save somebody. This nutbag lived with this grandmother. This is a grandmother who knew that she had a nutbag living there. Also, the grandchild lived with the nutbag. The grandmother knew a lot that went on, but the grandmother is trying to blame everyone else, which I can't disagree with the whole Child Protective Services, because Child Protective Services, while the intent might be to be good and to try to help families, Child Protective Services across this entire country have ruined and destroyed families. That is an absolute fact. Not in my family. Luckily enough, we have never need to have any intervention with that. But I have heard stories across this great country where Child Protective Services, because let's face it, they are hiring the bottom of the barrel, ruin families, and they don't do things consistent, and they have very poor judgment. So there may be some truth there, but clearly this nutbag grandmother is a little bit misinformed to think that a red flag gun law would have saved something. And I have to wonder to myself, this person, this grandmother, is stating that the grandchild, the one who performed the shooting, had threatened people. Well, wait a minute. That's against the law. When you threaten people's lives, that is against the law. Why didn't she report her granddaughter for threatening people's lives? She's waiting for some magical, fictitious law to be implemented to where anybody can report somebody else to have their guns taken away. You still had a nutbag living in your house, old lady. Do you not understand how the human mind works? You're lucky you weren't part of the body count, because when you take one tool away, but leave the threat available to access any other tool, are you really that stupid? Or are you just that naive to where you are hoping that a red flag gun law would solve the problem? You sound stupid to me. So once again, we have a narrative that the media is going to struggle with. They have one of their own, a trans person, and a, quote, immigrant, if you will, from El Salvador, not a white person. If you fill out a 4473 like this person passed in November, it specifically states Hispanic, or it has white on there. So this person had to choose one or the other, and I would be willing to bet, being from El Salvador, they chose Hispanic. They are not combined. They are not one. They are separate on the federal form that this person filled out to get the Anderson Manufacturing AR-15 that they used to try to murder a bunch of people at a Christian church. So please miss me with the whole she was white thing. She was crazy is what she was. I'm not really concerned with the race. I just want to be accurate in the reporting. But there is no mistake, and there is no debate. You can accept and you can celebrate people who pretend to be something that they are not all you want to and call it normal. It ain't normal. And most of the time, it will end in something like this. I'm not saying that everybody who pretends to be another thing, whether it be another gender or another species, not saying it will end in a, quote, attempted mass shooting like in this case. What I'm saying is you are dealing with mental instability. And when you celebrate it, you fail to get that person help. and something bad is liable to come out of this situation.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's over.